Today we are going to evaluate expressions with multiple steps. So here is the key concept. To evaluate an algebraic expression, use substitution to replace the variable with the numerical value. So they tell you what each variable or letter stands for in this particular problem. Remember, letters stand for multiple numbers. So you have to look at the specific problem they're talking about and use the numbers that they give you for the variable. So let's look at some of these expressions. Looking at the very first example, it says, evaluate the expression when z equals 10. So what you have to do is you have to take the 10 and substitute it in for the z. So you are taking 6 plus 10, which is 16. That's addition. Whenever you have a coefficient in a variable, such as 5z, this means to multiply. So when you substitute the 10 in for the z in this problem, you have 5 times 10, which is 50. 20 minus z, this is a subtraction problem. So you're going to place the 10 in for the z. 20 minus 10 is indeed 10. And the last one is an exponent. Your base is the z, your exponent is 2, or z to the second power. So remember, exponents mean you multiply the base that amount of times. So on this problem, you're going to take 10 times 10. Now we're going to take it a step further. We are going to combine addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So now they tell us a equals 2. So in this first example, if a equals 2, we have to substitute in the 2 wherever we have an a. Now, in this problem, we have a 4 touching the parentheses. Whenever you have a number outside of the parentheses touching, this means you have to distribute. That means you have to take 4 and multiply it by the a. And you also have to take the 4 and multiply it by the 4. So we are distributing the 4. So we could write this on this second step as 4 times 2 plus 4 times 4. So 4 times 2 is going to give us the 8 plus 4 times 4, which is 16. Remember, we have to follow order of operations. We have to do our multiplication before we add, which gives us the 24. This is called the distributive property. So whenever you have something touching the parentheses, you have to distribute or multiply it by everything inside of the parentheses. The next one, they give us a equals 1 and b equals 2. So we are simply going to substitute in the 1 wherever we see an a and a 2 wherever we see a b. Again, with your exponents, okay, you're taking 1 times 1, which is 1. Over here, you're taking 2 times 2, which is 4. And in the parentheses, 2 times 1 times 2 is indeed 4. Then you have to add all of those together, coming up with 9. So let's look at a couple examples together. So the first one we're going to start with is this number 24 down here at the bottom. This says evaluate the expression for the values of b. So essentially, this is 3 separate problems, okay? So what do I mean? Well, the first problem, they tell us b equals 8.9. So I have to take the 8.9 and put it in the expression. Okay, now if you forget how to multiply and add decimals, whenever you multiply, you don't line them up, but whenever you add, you do line them up. So you can use a calculator. 8.9 times 3, which is going to give us 26.7. Then we are going to add that to 20.4. Remember, you have to follow order of operations. So you have to multiply, then you have to add. So when we do that, we come up with the answer of 47.1. So in problem number 1, if B was 8.9, after we evaluate, we would come up with 47.1. So now we're going to do box number 2. Now they tell us B is 5.1. So again, we're going to plug in the 5.1 or substitute for the letter B. And then we're going to follow order of operations. First, we have to multiply 5.1 times 3, which is 15.3, and then we have to add it to 20.4, which gives us 35.7. So on this second one, if B was 5.1, we would come up with 35.7. Do you see how it's 3 separate problems? Yes, it's written in a table. Don't let that confuse you. Okay? So for this last one, we're going to substitute 0.2 for the letter B. And again, we're going to follow order of operations just like we have. 0.2 times 3 gives us 0.6 plus 20.4, which is going to give us a total of 21. So even though it's in the table, it's just telling us in the first problem, B equals 8.9. In the second problem, B is 5.1. And in the last problem, B is 0.2. All right. Now we're going to go back up and we're going to look at some of these. So W happens to be a fraction in this particular group of expressions. Now, again, don't let that bother you. You can turn the fraction into a decimal if you would like, or you can keep it a fraction. Remember, if you want to turn 1/2 to a decimal, you're going to divide 1 divided by 2. A fraction is a division problem, which is going to give you 0.5. If you would prefer to work with decimals, just simply change it into a decimal. But for the first one, we don't even need the W, we need the T. Well, they tell us T equals 8. So again, we are going to substitute, and then we're going to follow order of operations. First, we have to multiply 3 times 8, which gives us 24. Then we have to take 24 minus 8, which gives us 16. So you're simply substituting and following order of operations. First, we had to multiply, then we had to subtract. Order of operations, parentheses, exponents, multiply and divide, add and subtract. All right, let's try the next one. So this one we have 6 times 0.5, I'm going to use the decimal, divided by, they tell us x is 3 plus 9. So remember, I have to follow order of operations. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply. How come? Because multiplication and division go left to right. So when I multiply 6 by 0.5, or 1/2, I come up with 3. Then I have to take 3 divided by 3, which anything divided by itself is always 1. So I got to write it up here. 1 plus 9, we would come up with 10. We're going to go ahead and try just one more. So t is 8. So again, we're going to substitute in 8 squared minus 12 times 0.5. Again, I'm going to use the decimal. I find it easier to do that. You can do it either way. So the first thing in this problem we have to do is our exponent. Remember, our exponent is 8 times 8. 8 to the second power is 8 times 8. So 8 times 8, I'm going to rewrite it over here. I don't have enough room. Is 64 minus 12 times 0.5 divided by 3. Okay. After I do my exponent, I have to do multiplication and division. Okay, so I'm going to multiply first. So I'm going to have 64 minus 12 times 0.5 is 6 divided by 3. Next, I'm going to do my division. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And then if I take 64 minus 2, I come up with 62. That concludes our lesson.